So I have a couple of things I want to read off first. Yo, Michael. Boredom is lethal. Boredom says that there's nothing interesting to make here. Boredom reveals what we believe about the kind of world that we're living in. Boredom is lethal because it reflects a static and fixed view of the world. A world that is finished. Cynicism is slightly different from boredom, but just as lethal. Cynicism says that there's nothing new to make here, and often cynicism presents itself as wisdom, but it usually comes from a wound. Cynicism, it will act as though it's seeing a lot and knows how the world works, shooting down new ideas and efforts as childish and uninformed. Cynicism points out all the ways that something could go wrong, how stupid it is, and what a waste of time that it would be. And cynicism holds things at a distance, analyzing and mocking and noting all the possibilities for failure. Often, this is what the cynic did. To try something new at this point, but then it went belly up, and he was booed off stage, and that pain caused him to critique and ridicule, because there aren't any risks in doing that. If you hold something at a distance and make fun of it, then it can hurt you. And then there's a despair. While boredom can be fairly subtle and cynicism can appear quite intelligent and even funny, despair is like a dull thud in the heart. Despair says nothing that life makes matters. Despair reflects a pervasive dread that it's all pointless, that we are in the end simply wasting our time. Boredom, cynicism, and despair are spiritual diseases because they disconnect us from the most primal truths about ourselves, that we are here. All three distance us from and deaden us to the questions that the blinking line asks. How are you going to respond to this life that you've been given? What are you going to do with it? What are you going to make here? I have this book here. It's called The Ego Tunnel, and it has a lot in it, actually, about dreams and lucid dream state. Chapter 5 here is actually where it starts out. It's called Philosophical Psychonauts, What We Can Learn from Lucid Dreaming. During the night of May 6, 1986, I became consciously aware that I was sleeping and also spiraling out of my physical body in the typical manner described by Swiss biochemist Ernst Welty. Here's my case study. Standing in front of my bed, I immediately realized that for the first time in 2 years, I had entered the OBE state again. The clarity, the same electrified sense of lightness in my double body made me excited and extremely happy, and I immediately began to experiment. I moved towards the closed glass door of the second floor balcony of my parents' house. I touched the door, gently pushing it until I penetrated it and then slid out onto the balcony. I flew down into the garden and landed on the lawn, where I moved around in the dim moonlight and looked at things. Again, the overall experience was crystal clear. When I became afraid of not being able to sustain my condition much longer, I flew back up and somehow returned to my physical body and awoke with a mixture of great pride and joy. I had not managed to make any verifiable observations, But I had had another OBE, in a clear, cognitively lucid way, fully controlled and without any intermediary blackouts. I sat up, wanting to take notes as long as everything was still fresh, but couldn't find a pencil. I jumped out of bed and went over to my sister, who slept in the same room. I woke her up and then told her with great excitement that I had just managed to do it again. I had just been down in the garden, bouncing around on the lawn a minute ago. My sister looked at her alarm clock and said, "Man, it's 2:45. Why did you wake me up? Can't this wait until breakfast? Turn out the light and leave me alone." She turned over and went back to sleep. I was a bit disappointed at this lack of interest. I also noted that while fumbling with the alarm clock, she had accidentally set it off. It was beeping away, and I hoped it hadn't woken anyone else. Too late. I could hear someone approaching. At that moment, I woke up. I was not upstairs in my parents' house in Frankfurt, but in my basement house. The house I shared with 4 friends about 35 kilometers away. It was not 2:45 at night, and the sun was shining, and I had obviously been taking a short afternoon nap. For more than 5 minutes, I sat on the edge of my bed, almost frozen, not daring to move. I was unsure how real this situation was. I did not understand what had just happened to me. I didn't dare move because I was afraid I might wake up again into yet another ultra-realistic environment. In dream research, this is a well-known phenomenon called false awakening. Did I really have an out-of-body experience? Or did I only have a lucid dream of an out-of-body experience? Can one slide from an OBE into an ordinary dream via a false awakening? Are all OBEs forms of lucid dreaming in the first place? To wake up twice in a room is something that can shatter many of the theoretical intuitions that you have about consciousness. For instance, that the vividness, that the coherence, and the crispness of a conscious experience are evidence that you are really in touch with reality. Apparently, what we call waking up is something that can happen to you at any point in phenomenological time. This is a highly relevant empirical fact for philosophical epistemology. Now we can see what it means that the appearance and the reality distinction emerged only in the level of appearance. False awakenings demonstrate that consciousness is never more than the appearance of a world, and that there is no certainty involved, not even about the state and the general category of conscious experience in which you find yourself. So how do you know that you actually woke up this morning? Couldn't it be that everything that you have ever experienced was only a dream? Dreams are conscious because they create the appearance of a world. However, that there are also offline states, global states of conscious experience in which the ego is decoupled from sensory input and unable to generate overt motor behaviors. The dream tunnel not only contains the appearance of a world, but also in most cases creates a fully embodied, spatially extended self moving around in a spatially extended environment. The virtual self thus born is an exclusively internal phenomenon, and an even stronger sense than that of the waking self. It is immersed in a dense mesh of causal reactions, all of which are internal to the brain. Dreamers are self-aware, but functionally they are not situated. Dreams are subjective states in that there is a phenomenal self. However, the perspective from which this conscious self perceives the world is very different and much more unstable than it is during wakefulness. Have you ever noticed that you cannot control your attentional focus in your dreams? High-level attention is typically missing. Accordingly, the dream self generated inside of the ego tunnel when you are sleeping lacks the specific phenomenal quality I described in the preceding chapters as attentional agency, the conscious experience of directing the beam of your inner flashlight deliberately and selectively at various objects. But attentional agency is not just the ability to zoom in on certain things or to point your mind at particular features of your world model. It also entails the sense of ownership. Ownership of the selection process preceding the shift in attention. Both aspects are missing in your dreams. In a way, you are like an infant on a severely intoxicated person. The dream ego is much weaker than the waking ego. If one penetrates deeper into the specific phenomenology created by the dreaming ego, one discovers a considerable weakness of will and severe distortions of the thought process. In ordinary dreams, you sometimes cannot experience yourself as any sort of agent at all. It is difficult, for example, to make a decision and then to follow through with it. But even if you manage that, you're typically unable to ascribe agency to yourself. The dreaming self is a confused thinker, severely disoriented with regard to places, times, and people's identities. Short-term memory is greatly impaired and unreliable. Also, only rarely does the dream self have such sensory experiences as pain, temperature, smell, or taste. Even more interesting is the extreme instability of the first-person perspective. Attention, thinking, and willing are highly unstable and exist only intermittently. Yet the ordinary dreaming ego does not really care about this, or even notice it. The dream self is like the I don't know how to say this word, anosognostic patient who lacks insight into a deficit following brain injury. So I want to show the art on this page here. This is about the dream ego, and here's like a illustration of a lot of the chaos that I wanted to put on this page connected to dreaming. I've been having a lot of really cool dreams lately, and the artwork has been being put on everything, like this jacket, for instance. I'll stand up and show you guys it. Thanks, Nathan and Matthew. The art has definitely been flowing in, and ready to get with my tribe and start doing some of this next level stuff. I don't know how long it's going to take for us to all get together, but I'm ready. Let me read some more, or actually there's a few more illustrations in here that I can show you guys. Thank you, Nomad. This chapter here is chapter 7, detaching from our artificial ego machines in dreams. Really good chapter here, and And then chapter 4 here, I drew this picture here. A lot of spirals, of course. I know it usually takes a lot longer to fill up a book with our art, but I envision us actually doing that. A group of us artists having an art party. We can draw on our skins too, draw on clothes, get some good books together that we feel would be good for sharing to people across the world for this awakening of the consciousness, right? I want to be doing this, and I think it's time to figure this out, how we can all get together and really do this. Now I'm going to continue here and reading about the dream states. All right, so we just learned here that attention, thinking, and willing are highly unstable, and they exist only intermittently. Yet the ordinary dreaming ego does not really care about this or even notice it. The dream self is like the anastogonistic patient who lacks insight into a deficit following brain injury. At the same time, the dream self creates intense emotional experiences. Some aspects of the self are clearly stronger in the dream tunnel than in the tunnel of awaking consciousness. Anyone who has ever had a nightmare knows how intense the feeling of panic can become during dreams. And in the dream state, the emotional self-model can be characterized by unusually intense degrees of feeling, though this is not true for all emotions. For example, fear, elation, and anger predominate over sadness, shame, and guilt. Oh. Yeah, I hear you, Baba Gira. Yeah. Occasionally, the dream tunnel enables the ego to access information about itself that is unavailable during the waking state. I think that's a critical detail there. That's why some of your dreams might be kind of wonky. You might suddenly be having access to your past lives or anything like that. So I don't know if that's exactly what it's saying. But so like it can have access to information about itself that is unavailable during the waking state, whereas short-term memory is commonly impaired, and long-term memory can be greatly enhanced. For instance, it is possible to relive childhood episodes vividly, memories that would never have been accessible during wakefulness. We tend to forget these afterward because most of us have very weak dream recall abilities. But as long as the dream lasts, we have access to state-specific forms of self-knowledge. Blind people are sometimes able to see in dreams. Helen Keller, who turned blind and deaf at the age of 19 months, emphasized the importance of these occasional visual experiences. She says, blot-out dreams and the blind lose one of their chief comforts. For in the visions of sleep, they behold their belief in the seeing mind and their expectation of light beyond the blank, narrow night justified. And in one study, congenitally blind subjects produced dream drawings that judges were unable to distinguish from drawings of sighted subjects. And as EEG correlates between them were sufficiently similar, this strongly suggests that they can see in their dreams. But do they? It is also interesting to note that Keller's dream tunnel contained the phenomenal qualities associated with smell and taste, which most of us experience only rarely in the dream state. And it seems as if her dream tunnel became richer because her waking tunnel had lost some of its qualitative dimensions. The dream tunnel shows to what extent conscious experience is virtual reality. It internally simulates a behavioral space, a space of possibilities in which you can act. It simulates real-life sense impressions. As discussed in Chapter 3, this is exactly what modern designers of virtual realities are trying to achieve. Indeed, One of the best scientific journals on virtual reality technology is titled Presence. It is precisely this sense of presence and full immersion that our biological ancestors achieved long ago. The resultant ego, however, has created a more robust sense of presence for dreaming and for waking life as well. If it had not done so, we probably would not be trying to create virtual realities today, nor would we research the ability of the human brain to achieve this miracle within itself. Even though dreams are behavioral spaces, they are not causally coupled to the real behavioral space of the dreaming human organism. Dreamers are not bodily agents. Their behavior is internal and simulated behavior. The inhibition of the spinal motor neurons prevents bodily behavior from being generated during dream sleep. That is, REM, rapid eye movement sleep. This is how the dream ego is separated from the physical body. When this motor inhibition fails, as it does in disorders known as RBD, for REM sleep behavior disorder, internal dream behaviors is acted out in the waking world. Typically found in men over 60, RBD is associated with a loss of the muscle atonia that typically accompanies REM sleep. Patients suffering from RBD are forced to act out dramatic and often violent dreams. They will shout or grunt. They may attempt to strangle their bed partners or set fire to their own beds, jump out of windows, or even fire a gun. Later, they will recall little or nothing of this physical activity, unless they fall out of the bed or bump into furniture or injure themselves or someone else and then wake up. But they can usually recall the dreams themselves, which typically involve such physical activities as fighting, running, chasing or being chased, and attacking and being attacked. These patients also seem to experience violent and aggressive dream content more frequently than healthy subjects do. Obviously, this is a dangerous condition that can lead to self-inflicted injuries and serious sleep deprivation. What we can learn from it is how the dream body in normal circumstances is decoupled from the physical body. Normally, dreamers are not bodily agents, and all their behaviors is purely internal, simulated behaviors. But when motor inhibitions fails, as it does in RBD, internal dream behavior is enacted by the physical body. The most interesting feature of ordinary dreams leads to some deeper philosophical considerations about the nature of consciousness. The dream tunnel is generated in a very special configuration. During REM sleep, as noted, there is an output blockade responsible for the paralysis of the sleeper, and there is an input blockade which prevents, at least to a degree, sensory signals in the sleeper's environment from penetrating conscious experience. At the same time, chaotic internal signals are generated by what are known as PGO waves. They are electrical bursts of neural activities named for the brain areas involved: the pons, the lateral geniculate nucleus in the thalamus, and the occipital primary visual cortex, and are closely related not only to eye movements, but also to the processing of visual information. As the brain tries to understand and to interpret this chaotic internal patterns of signals, it starts telling itself a fairy tale, with the dream ego playing the leading role. The interesting point is that the dream ego does not know that it is dreaming, and it does not realize that the signals that it is turning into are internal narratives that are self-generated stimuli. In philosophical jargon, this feature of the dream state is a metacognitive deficit, and the dream ego is delusional and lacking insight into the nature of the state it is itself generating. The next section here is called lucid dreaming. So in lucid dreaming, the natural question to ask is if there are dreams with additional insights, dreams in which the dream self model has become so strong and rich that it allows us to understand what is happening. Can one consciously enjoy one's own internal virtual reality? And is it possible to dream without the metacognitive deficit? The answer is yes. You can have dreams in which you are not only aware of the fact that you are dreaming, but also possess a complete memory both of your dream life and your waking life, as well as the phenomenal property of agency on the levels of attention, thought, and behavior. Such dreams are called lucid dreams. They are highly interesting, not so much for the sheer fun of the drama, but because they open new ways of investigating the phenomenon of conscious experience. In particular, they help us to understand how the various levels of the self-model are constructed and then woven into the dream tunnel. Dutch psychiatrist Frederik van Eden, who coined the phrase lucid dreaming, reported the following experience to the Society for Psychical Research in 1913. In January 1898, I was able to repeat the observation. I dreamt that I was lying in the garden, and before the windows of my study, I saw the eyes of my dogs through the glass pane. I was lying on my chest and observing the dog very keenly. At the same time, however, I knew with perfect certainty that I was dreaming and lying on my back in my bed. And then I resolved to wake up slowly and carefully to observe how my sensation of lying on my chest would change to the sensation of lying on my back. And so I did, slowly and deliberately, and the transition, which I have since undergone many times, is most wonderful. It is like the feeling of slipping from one body into another, and there is distinctly a double recollection of the two bodies. I remembered what I felt in my dream. I'm lying on my chest, but returning into the day life. And I remembered also that my physical body had been quietly lying on its back all the while. This observation of a double memory I have had many times since, and it is so indubitable that it leads almost unavoidably to the conception of a dream body. So Van Eden's dream body is the self-model in the dream state. Lucid dreams are fascinating because of our naive realism, our unawareness of living our lives in an ego tunnel. It is temporarily suspended, and they are therefore a promising route of research for solving what I term the reality problem in our tour of the tunnel in Chapter 2. A lucid dream is a global simulation of a world in which we suddenly become aware that it is indeed just a simulation. It is a tunnel whose inhabitant begins to realize that he or she operates in a tunnel all the time. Hugh G. Calloway, a British experimenter in out-of-body experiences, was published under the pseudonym Oliver Fox. He recorded the following classic episode, occurring in 1902 when he was a young science student at the Harley Institute at Southampton. I dreamed that I was standing on the pavement outside my home. I was about to enter the house when, on glancing casually at the pavement stones, my attention became riveted by a passing strange phenomenon, so extraordinary that I could not believe my eyes. They had seemingly all changed their position in the night. The long sides were parallel to the curb. Then the solution flashed upon me. Though this glorious summer morning seemed as real could be, I was dreaming. With the realization of this fact, the quality of the dream changed in a manner very difficult to convey to one who has not had this experience. Instantly, the vividness of life increased 100-fold. Never had the sea and the skies and the trees shone with such glamorous beauty. Even the commonplace houses seemed alive and mystically beautiful. Never had I so absolutely so clear-brained and so inexpressibly freed. This sensation was exquisite beyond words, but it lasted only a few minutes and then I awoke. Maybe you've had a lucid dream yourself. This phenomenon is not rare. If not, you can try a number of different induction techniques. For instance, you can adopt the habit of performing reality checks several times a day. Each reality check should last at least a minute. It consists in carefully inspecting your current inner and outer environment for any indications that this might not be ordinary waking reality. Here is a checklist that readers interested in exploring the dream tunnel can use as a guideline. Is all the furniture arranged the way that it normally is? Are the paving stones, the tiles, or the design of the carpet on the floor arranged in the same pattern as well? Do objects or persons suddenly appear and then disappear, or do they change their identity? Do you know who you are and where you are? Do you remember what day of the week it is and when you last woke up? Are there any gaps in your short-term memory of recent events? Does your visual attention shift the way that it usually does? Are you engaging in any unusual physical activities? For example, flying. Are you constantly trying to remember something that you know is of great importance, but you can't remember what it is? And last, does your current situation have a metaphoric or symbolic character? Or do you have the feeling of being close to an important discovery? If you perform reality checks of this type several times a day, then you have a good chance of eventually becoming a lucid dreamer. By pure habit, you will one day perform a reality check in a dream. And if you are lucky, you will correctly realize that you are dreaming. Other methods of inducing lucid dreams are even more difficult. Try setting an alarm clock early in the morning, then carefully writing down the events of your last dream. Then get up, move around for a short period of time, and then go back to bed. That's my favorite thing to do, personally. While you're falling asleep, try to rehearse the last sequences of the dream events in as much detail as you can. You may find that you are consciously re-entering the dream, and then you stay lucid throughout it. As an intrepid philosophical psychonaut, I have of course tried to build devices to do this kind of exploring, involving headphones and tape loops whispering, "Watch out, this is a dream," at 30-minute intervals all night long. I also bought an expensive lucid dreaming device called a Nova Dreamer, which looks a bit like eye masks that you sometimes see people wearing on long-distance plane flights. The Nova Dreamer is activated when your rapid eye movements signal the start of a dream. After a couple of minutes, it begins submitting mild subliminal visual stimuli, and you can perceive these soft, red, ring-shaped flashes of light through your closed eyelids. They are meant to alert you to the fact that you are dreaming. However, they are more likely to be integrated into your dream history. For instance, a writer here says that what happens to him is that his dreams were thus invaded. I am an astronaut. I have been waiting for this moment for years. My friend and I are lying on our backs in the space shuttle, awaiting takeoff with a mixture of anxiety and great excitement. Deep below our backs, we can feel the rumbling and rattling of the ignition. It will give way to a thundering roar. Then red lights start flashing everywhere on the control panel. Suddenly, every possible alarm system is activated. Someone is saying, "Something must have gone terribly wrong." And then we feel that the spaceship is slowly tilting to the side and losing its vertical position while the roar at our backs gets louder and louder. So unfortunately, all I ever got out of my expensive lucid dreaming devices was terrible nightmares. With an interesting twist. In Germany, the flashing lights of police cars are blue. So what I got from this device was American nightmares, with American police cars hunting me down and cornering me, flashing red lights and all. So every 2 years or so, I give my Nova Dreamer another try. But lately it has had a different effect on me. I wake up in the morning and the device is gone. If I go to look for it, I find that it has been hurled across the bedroom by some stranger.
Apparently, there is someone inside of me who does not want me to be a philosophical psychonaut or a serious practitioner of a first-person phenomenological research at all. Someone who just wants to sleep. So what exactly is a lucid dream? In a lucid dream, the dreamer knows that she is currently experiencing a dream and is able to ascribe this property to herself. If we opt for a strong definition, another condition is that she also has access to memories of her previous dreams and waking life. Autobiographical memory is fully intact. The dreamer has full access not only to past conscious experiences in waking life and in ordinary dreams, but also to previously experienced lucid dreams. The overall level of mental clarity and cognitive insight is at least as high as it is during normal waking states. A further defining characteristic is that, according to subjective experience, all five senses function just as well as they do during the waking life. Finally, and perhaps most important, the property of agency is so fully realized. The property of agency is fully realized in the lucid dream. I don't know how to say that word. Phenomenologically, the lucid dreamer knows about her freedom of will. Not only can she direct the focus of attention wherever she likes, but she can also actually do whatever she wants. Fly, walk through walls, or engage in conversations with dream figures. The subject of a lucid dream is not a passive victim lost in a sequence of bizarre episodes, but rather is a full-blown agent, capable of selecting from a variety of possible actions. Full control of one's attention is an important feature distinguishing lucid dreams from ordinary dreams. Insight into one's freedom to act is also an important criterion of lucid dreamings. But is it an insight? During what are sometimes called pre-lucid dreams, we frequently become aware that none of this is real, that this must be a dream. But we remain passive observers. With the onset of full lucidity, the dreamer often turns from a passive observer into an agent, someone who takes charge, moves around, explores, and experiments, who deliberately starts to interact with the dream world and to shape it. My favorite experiment in lucid dream research was conducted by Stanford University physiologist Stephen LaBerge and his colleagues more than a quarter of a century ago. It exploited the interesting fact that our conscious self model is firmly anchored in the brain in a fascinating way. There is a direct and reliable relationship between the gaze shifts reported by lucid dreamers and the eye movements observed in their sleeping bodies. In the sleep lab, these eye movements can be recorded using a polygraph. The fact that the movements of the dream eyeballs in the dream body are directly correlated with the movements of the physical eyeballs in one's physical body was used by LaBerge in a particularly ingenious experiment. Veteran subjects deliberately indicated the initiation of a lucid dream with specific ocular signals determined by the experiments. That is, by rapidly moving their eyes up and down. To such eye shifts, they would inform the experimenters of the onset of a lucid dream. 4 signaled awakening. The polygraphic analysis revealed that the onset of lucidity is typically correlated with the first 2 minutes of an REM phase, or with short intervals of waking consciousness during an REM phase, or with heightened phasic REM actively, characterized by bursts of eye movements and sometimes by motor twitches, and widespread synchronized activity in specific networks. But simply, lucidity seems to occur when there is a brief and sudden increase of the general cortical level of arousal. All nerve cells become more active. So I guess what they're saying is that there's something to look at. Thank you. Hey, the studio's in our my hometown library in Xenia. Here, I'm going to turn this music down a little bit. Yo, thank you, Stephen. Yeah. Hey, I love you, Amber. I remember reading that, reading about Exodus. Yeah. I miss you too. I plan on being, of course, at Sage Valley on May 18th. I can't wait. But hey, we're all waking up, right? Yo, I think it's time to wake up this world, though, for sure. That's why I've been getting into understanding dream life. My sister talks to me every now and then, telling me about the dreams that she has when she sees me. And I'd be interested to know if anybody else also sees me popping up in their dreams. Hopefully, you're used to seeing your friends in the dream world. But if you're not, then you'll figure it out that, oh, hey, that's my friend from over there. And you guys all begin hanging out together. Yeah, but wake up and play for sure. Let's wake up and play. Thank you, Nomad. Let's see. I think there's a couple more art pieces in here. Oh, check this out. Here's a comic book, Chris. Or a comic strip, at least. Imagine that these people are meditating. They're sitting in these, I don't know, it's your personal conscious spaceship. It looks like the Star of David, but in a 3D pattern. And it says, look, we have discovered this location. Follow me. And the other guy's like, dude, slow down. I guess I can only fly so fast. But Turtle Island, that's where we live on this. It's called Turtle Island. And we all know that on Turtle Island we have it has its problems, I guess. I went out to Hawaii and they woke me up. They said that there's a thing that we need to do is to bring people to greater consciousness on this planet and such. So I think we're all getting together. We're going to make artwork for that reason. Here, I want to show off this jacket one last time, and then I have something else to switch to for reading. So somebody put this jacket in the free box across from the Spirited Goat. And it had been all white. It's like stuff all over. Yeah, like I've been really getting into doing art on clothes because it takes a while actually to draw it. Draw all over a jacket and even a shirt or pants. It takes a while, but I think that's going to be I guess my business while on the road while traveling. I just no idea how to figure out how to sell it because how long it takes to do some of the items. But I think we'll figure it out. I think if like 2 or 3 other artists join me, then we could just like finish an outfit really fast. Well, yeah, I want to do that too, Chris. Body painting. We have a few friends who want to do that too. So, like, yeah, that would be very fun. like some of the ideas was like if we do an art party, people, if you have symbols that you want drawn on you, I can draw them real quick, or we can do like a tattoo party, and some people can have the symbols tattooed onto them. But I have to find my friends who have tattoo guns because I don't have them, but a few of my friends do. You know, while I'm in Ohio, I'm going to be here for until May. I would like to do this art party. You know, so get at me. Let's like really do this, like, because it'll be fun just to see everybody painted up, take pictures, and so show like, yo, revolution. So I've been having some intense dreams lately, and like we're all getting together, we're figuring some stuff out. Oh, but definitely has been good. Yo, so I'm going to sign out. I really am happy that I got to record some stuff on lucid dreaming. Again, this book here is called The Ego Tunnel by Thomas Metzinger. Really good book. Has a lot of stuff in it about lucid dreaming and trying to understand what the ego is. So I guess apparently we have tunnel vision, issues, and our ego can be caught up inside of a tunnel, just as your waking self is inside of a tunnel. Peace and blessings. Looks like I've been recording for about 46 minutes. Oh my goodness. Hey, bless you, Baba Gira. Bless you, brother, or dream brother.